Welcome to Scandinavian Mind Weekly, our show about the current trends and events within business, tech, fashion, design, culture, and more from the Nordic perspective of our team of editors and contributors. Today on the program, the Avicii Tribute Museum opens in Stockholm. We have been there and checked it out. LinkedIn debuts its own podcast network. We talk about what that means for podcasting going forward. Also, we are going to print with our next issue of Scandinavian Mind and take a look at some of the highlights. I am Konrad Olsson, editor-in-chief and founder of Scandinavian Mind, and I'm here with my junior editor, Erik Sedin. How are you, Erik?
I'm good. I'm back from the dead from last
dead.
week's debacle. Interestingly enough, my girlfriend tested positive for COVID yesterday. So that might have been what I had the week before.
Yeah, it's really going around. No, we're super happy you were sick, the week before last, and not this week because we're going to print with the third issue of Scandinavian Mind, and ever since we started with Scandinavian Mind and our newsletters and our entire thing with the podcast, we've had this sort of mantra, which is saying that it's A+ consistency and B+ content. And it's just that some weeks you kind of feel like you're not really you don't really have time for it all, but and I was tempted to cancel this week's podcast because there's been so much going on with sending the next issue to print today, like this minute actually. Our creative director Erik is sitting on putting the last touches to the last pages, and unfortunately, Roland couldn't be here this week as well. But here we are, right, Erik? Here we are.
Yes, and this issue 3 will be worth it if you get a shorter podcast this week. It could be worth it
for sure. I'm so happy about this issue. It's very rare that I really feel super excited about sending a print thing because it's just such an overwhelming project. But looking over the pages last night, I just felt like this might be some of the best stuff we've ever done. Actually, I'm super excited. I don't want to jinx anything, and perhaps that's what I'm doing just by saying it. But there's I think there's a sense of clarity. Only to speak on that for a moment. In what we've done with really taking the temperature on the metaverse, digital fashion, what's been going on. It's funny, I looked over my last editor's letter for issue 2 that came out in September, and what my editor's letter was about was really like an explainer on the metaverse.
Yeah.
which feels so dated even now, like 6 or 7 months later, and it just shows how much is going on in this space.
And I think that's an interesting point, because we've been, I won't say like early adopters, but we've been talking about this now. So this kind of issue is kind of like a matured view of the metaverse. We're kind of like,
For sure.
we have some distance to it. We've seen it. We've written about it now for close to 2 years. So this is like kind of a guide of like an experience guide of what we've learned, kind of.
Yeah, and I kind of also like the notion that we, we're sending a print magazine off to production, and we have this really sort of old school setup with this really tactile, wonderful Swedish paper, and the whole issue is just 3D animations, renderings of different digital garments, and talks about how our digital lives will be. There's kind of like a beauty in that contrast. But I think what
Definitely.
people will see with this issue is kind of what you're alluding to. It's kind of like a moment in time. So
Yes.
we really researched the entire industry, specifically relating to digital fashion, looking at all the projects out there. And I don't want to spoil the cover or the cover story just yet, but really found a cover story that is smack in the middle of this development. And I'm sure that this issue will, 6 months from now, when we're doing issue 4, can't even talk about that right now. It's too close. But I'm sure that this will feel dated too, but in a way that there's strength in capturing the evolution of something. And a lot of this issue is also about understanding some of these concepts and see where we are. um, yeah, no, that I just feel super excited about it.
That's perhaps also a good thing. I feel like when I've been writing. We talked about this before, like a long digital fashion survey or list in this piece,
mm,
and
mm,
the other issues I've been doing, like lists on innovation and stuff. And I always write, I really hope this list is outdated when this is published.
yeah.
That's kind of the way we want it to be. We don't want it to be like a. It's a sign of the times and a kind of sign of how fast things are moving.
Yeah, I'm also getting a sense, just as a general reflection in the industry right now, because I'm getting requests now from all kinds of places, even before they knew about this issue. I got a request from one of the bigger fashion entities here in Stockholm to have me on and do a lecture about the metaverse, because they are starting to waking up to this topic, and they want to learn more about it. I ran into just an anecdote. I ran into one of our, kind of biggest and most experienced, most established interior designers on the street the other day, and he just, waved at me, stopped me, and he's like, Konrad, I need to talk to you about the metaverse. What's going on? And he's like, I'm an interior designer. And he was talking about, like, the first generation of computers were done by typographers and some graphic designers, and now we were moving into 3D. And he's like, I work with 3D environments all the time. I need to kind of be a part of
Yeah,
this.
of course, it's very natural for them, actually,
For
when you think
sure.
about it.
And my point being here that I think, even though, I mean, we are really close to this subject, we're covering it. We're covering sort of every inch, every step of the way. But we're still super early with this too. So making kind of this, mark in time with this issue, I think hopefully, I think it will help many people in understanding many of these concepts, because there are many businesses out there, designers, creators, that are right now sitting struggling with, what will my role be in this new kind of landscape. And
Mm.
if anything, I hope we can help with that. Anyways, let's take a look at some of the stories that's been happening this week. Our dear friend and colleague Johan Magnusson went to the opening of the tribute museum, the Avicii Experience in Stockholm, the other day, and I thought we could take a look at that a little bit. We have a story up on Scandinavian Mind. Erik, you actually you've been there prior to the opening of the museum, right? You've seen the space.
Yeah, our loyal listeners will remember, like maybe like the first or second episode of this, when I went to this like gaming space called
Mm.
it was called Space, basically. So yeah, it's like an internet cafe, like a modern grown-up internet cafe. This
Mm.
place is right next to the Avicii one,
Mm.
and Avicii Museum, then and the Avicii exhibition. And basically, this whole space is about digital culture, gaming culture, and how kids and now also grown-ups express themselves online, and a safe space for them to meet. And
Right.
I just remember back then they were talking about this Avicii space, and Johan, our colleague, is writing about it too. How Avicii was really in tune. He was really like tapped into gaming and online culture. He was
Mm.
sitting at home when he was a kid, like in his teens, and playing video games, playing Counter Strike and stuff, and then he would make music on the sides. Like when they were in these like lobby rooms waiting to get for a game to start, his friends would tell him, "Oh, write a song. It's fun when you write those songs."
So let's take a look at what this is. We have an interview up with Lisa Harling Odland, which is a content producer for the museum, and she talks about it's a museum that lets the visitor kind of explore and learn about Tim, the person, they say, not Avicii the artist. And it seems like they've created some kind of time travel through various rooms. And you kind of experience his life, starting with his boyhood room, moving to his and Ash's first studio, Earfile Studios, in an Östermalm basement, part of Stockholm. And just moving forward like that. I'm really curious. I'm really excited to experience this myself. But it really feels like they created it's not just a museum with kind of images and texts and going through like a
No.
like a 3D magazine. Sometimes museums are pretty stale. You have
Yeah.
some old outfits on mannequins and so forth. They have like something called VR karaoke, for instance. It seems exciting. Seems like they've really thought about how to create something immersive and modern.
Yeah, and next week is Sportlov, at least in Stockholm, in Sweden. So I think a lot of
Yeah,
parents will bring their kids there for a day. Check it out. It's like the perfect place.
definitely, definitely. And the only thing I'm curious is how, if anything, how would this look like if they would do it digitally? And this is just kind of another reflection. I've been talking to people who's been involved in creating some of these museums. Obviously, we have Pop House Entertainment is kind of the company behind this. They have done the ABBA Museum before. I think there's an opportunity here to create this sort of digital twin of these spaces as well. Why should this
Hmm.
only be a physical place in Stockholm? And it
Hmm.
feels like what they're creating with the content should be fitting for a digital experience as well.
Definitely, definitely. I'm pretty sure they're. I don't know if you got that out of them, but I'm pretty sure they're working on that. It seems in theme with the place and with Avicii too,
Mm,
because
mm.
most of that culture is experienced online and virtually.
Yeah. Of course, the His Royal Highness the Prince Carl Philip of Sweden and Princess Sophia was there with the inauguration. That's always something for for the audience. Every time we post that online, there seem to be readers flowing to our website.
Yeah.
But you and the what he said from the opening, that it was really kind of emotional and a moment being there opening this. So, and I think there's a lot of people who has a special relation to this artist, and there's a special sense of pride given this tragic life of Avicii, that we now have this place we can go to and pay tribute to him. It's called a tribute museum. All right, moving on. We mentioned last time you were on, we talked about Reddit and their move into sort of audio rooms and so forth. And now LinkedIn has debuted its own podcast network. Erik, you've been looking into this.
Yeah, so even though Reddit did like a Clubhouse copy or a Clubhouse killer,
Mm.
LinkedIn is not really doing that. They should, I guess. I think everyone should if they can. But this is like just like a podcast network or like a podcast platform integrated into LinkedIn. And as of now, I don't know if you know about. Do you know about LinkedIn News, like the page LinkedIn News?
I know they're developing LinkedIn quite a lot with some of these concepts. I haven't looked at that specifically, but
It's
no, go
basically
on.
just
Yeah.
a page for everyone to like. So they have
Mm.
LinkedIn have chosen out like a couple of I think 10 or 15 editors, news editors that just scour LinkedIn and look for cool stories and then post them there. And that's kind of like
Mm.
for the LinkedIn content creator, because it's kind of like a content place now. It's not really just for jobs. People, that's like the biggest dream, to get highlighted on LinkedIn News, because they have 8 million, I think 7 or 8 million
Yeah.
likes and followers, and that's where
Yeah.
you want to be shown. So this is also the place where LinkedIn will start their podcast platform. Only hosts and only these editors of LinkedIn News will be able to start doing these podcasts on LinkedIn, which I think is quite interesting, because that's also what Reddit did with their podcasting. Only like a few selected like admins and like editors there could start a podcast. So it's not for anyone, which is, I
Hmm.
think, is quite interesting. And maybe this is like social media learning from mistakes of just dropping something, then everyone just go crazy with it.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's
It's,
more like a
it's like some.
curated, edited experience in terms of
Yeah,
the
of course.
the.
At least in the beginning, I think this would be. I think LinkedIn would kind of shoot themselves in the foot if they don't let, for example, Scandinavian Mind, like us. Let's say we can have like LinkedIn podcasts on Fridays or whatever. Direct this podcast live directly on LinkedIn, and people can
Right.
comment live, and we can have polls on their live. And
Yeah. Yeah.
obviously we're not, down with the LinkedIn news editor crew yet, but I think they should look at that. It's
I
actually
think,
really
Erik,
interesting.
you have to get on it. You have to start mingle, do some
Yeah,
metaverse
LinkedIn
mingling
mingling.
to get in there. No, I think this is super interesting for several reasons, and just going back to the notion of this sort of creating an edited experience, bringing on exclusive content, exclusive editors. I mean, obviously that's what's happening over at Spotify as well. Too, it's kind of a great deal of controversy with Joe Rogan. So I think any platform needs to find its unique kind of selling point, and having unique content on there is like the kind of simplest way to go. But there's a few other things I want to mention. Obviously, LinkedIn's co-founder Reid Hoffman, obviously podcaster himself. He has a great podcast called Masters of Scale, where he's pretty much interview every big startup tech entrepreneur in the world on that one. So that's a recommendation. It's been around for a few years. But moving on from that, I think this is kind of like a no-brainer. I'm super excited about how LinkedIn is evolving as this kind of grown-up professional social medium. And I mean, we can tell it as well from since starting Scandinavian Mind, LinkedIn has been the social medium that has grown the fastest for us, and we get a lot of kind of high quality traffic from there.
Yeah,
Obviously,
definitely.
yeah. You've seen this, right?
Yeah, I've seen it kind of firsthand, and it could be my age, could be how I just got LinkedIn for this job because I had to get it when we kicked off our.
You
Because
remember?
I had
Remember,
this.
you were like, "What's LinkedIn? Do I have to get an account now?"
And now I'm like a LinkedIn master. We joke about it all the time. It's like my place. I own that place now. But anyways, so I think I kind of made fun. I've always made fun about LinkedIn. Like the LinkedIn vibe. How people always,
Yeah,
they big up themselves and that kind of vibe on LinkedIn, and that is still very much there. But I've seen since just for like 1.5 years now, it's starting to be a bit more relaxed. It's starting to be a lot more memes. We got some emojis floating around. It's a bit more relaxed, and like the LinkedIn vibe that we've talked about before, and like
yeah.
that can be
No,
kind
for
of.
sure. I mean, it's also about gathering business professionals into one platform, and I. A couple of months back, I heard some. So we should look up this, but there was a number saying that in terms of advertising revenue, like the value of a reader, a LinkedIn participant, like a LinkedIn person, is worth
Wow.
like 100 more than a Facebook reader in
Yeah,
terms of
yeah, yeah,
their
yeah.
buying power and so forth. So it's also kind of like a premium social network. I haven't signed up for the paid one because still think that's like ridiculously expensive, and I'm not on the lookout for a new job anytime soon, so I kind of don't need it. But it's obvious, there's parts of our operation that really is about covering the insides of some of these industries that we are writing about. So, and I think so that's why we get so much traction from it. So when kind of alluding to what I talked about before, that when we write about some new development with digital fashion, or some other stuff that we're coming up with now with new materials companies within fashion that works with sort of recycled fibers, we get a lot of traction for that in the Nordic fashion community, from brands and from people working with some of these topics. And it's only natural that comes from LinkedIn rather than from Instagram or Facebook
Yes,
or
yes.
even TikTok.
Yeah, and LinkedIn, they also have newsletters like integrated into the platform and
Mm.
live shows integrated. Like you can do everything on there. So who knows? We might be like a LinkedIn company. Let's just
Yeah,
remove the website.
we'll definitely keep an eye on it. And you, Erik, as our resident LinkedIn expert, it's going to be your part of your job description to learn about how to get on the LinkedIn roster, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so we decided to have a little bit of a shorter episode this week, just a kind of a check-in. We are sending the next issue of Scandinavian Mind to print. It's going to be out in a few weeks. There are launch events coming up in Stockholm, so if you want to get in touch, just email us directly, or just easiest way is just sign up to our newsletter. This is scandinavianmind.com/newsletter to stay updated on the upcoming developments. Erik, Sedin, this has been great. It's been Scandinavian Mind Weekly. Until next time, enjoy your weekend.
Thank you. See ya.